Gabriel Jesus is out for at least the season after suffering a serious knee injury. But Mikel Arteta assures Arsenal fans that they are working hard to sign a forward this month. Manchester City are working on 3 potential signings, but want-away Kyle Walker isn't with the squad for the game at Brentford tonight. And Unai Emery and Aston Villa have completed the signing of Donyell Malen from Borussia Dortmund. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. Our senior reporters Tim Thornton and Rob Dorset are here to take us through the movers and shakers. But we're also building up to 4 Premier League games tonight, and we'll keep a lookout for the team news right across Europe with plenty of players in the spotlight. But as ever, it's the transfers that are dominating the agenda.
The same, we are actively looking in the market to improve the squad.
January is a difficult month to kind of really have any certainty about anything.
And we are passengers, so we are not the pilot who is flying the plane.
It's a change, clear change. One player leaving, one player joining us.
You can never pre-plan them. You can never think, well, that's going to be our lot. It can change in the blink of an eye.
Team for me is as one brain, you understand? One brain, must have one brain.
I'm sure that you will get to know at first when something will happen.
First tonight, it looked bad. It is bad. Arsenal have confirmed that Gabriel Jesus suffered an ACL injury in that defeat by Manchester United on Sunday. Now, in all likelihood, that doesn't just rule him out of this season, but the start of next as well. Well, speaking before the news broke, Mikel Arteta said Arsenal were already looking to strengthen the squad and not just up front.
We are actively looking in the market to improve the squad. And that's been since day one. We will be naive not to do that because it's an opportunity always to evolve the team, to improve the squad, and especially with the circumstances that we have. So yes, we are looking and we are trying, and let's see what we are able to do.
You said it wasn't in your hands. What did you mean by that?
Well, you have to recruit a player. There are 3 parties, and you have to agree to that. And we have our limitations as well, like any other club.
Do you believe now that you have to bring in what would be considered an out-and-out striker through the middle, number 9?
We have to believe that if we bring something, it's going to make us better. And there are.
But in that position in particular?
No, but it's in any position because we have other issues as well.
So, Rob, Arteta says they are actively looking. Where are they looking?
They've had a number of options, Mike. In fact, they've been looking for a striker for more than a year, let's be honest, even before these injury problems arose. But because of Jesus' injury in particular, I think there's a couple of options that they've got directly. I mean, look, you look at the squad they've got. They've only really got Kai Havertz, other than the poor old injured Gabriel Jesus, who's an out-and-out striker. Yes, Raheem Sterling can play as a number 9. Yes, he can play with a false number 9, but they don't have many genuine strikers. David Ornstein says they're looking at loans abroad. Well, look, in truth, they have to look abroad because they've got 2 Premier League loans already in Neto and Sterling, so they can't take another one from this country. They have to look at foreign loans from abroad. One of those, I understand, is Benjamin Sesko at RB Leipzig. Arsenal like him. They looked at him during the summer. Could they get him now? Well, it's difficult to get a player of that calibre, difficult to get any top striker in January, but supposedly his release clause is about £55 million, which for a top striker is not bad value. I think what Arsenal are trying to work out here is, well, when Gabriel Jesus comes back and when Bukayo Saka comes back, he's not a striker, but he contributes a lot of goals. Does this new player get into the side? Have they got too many forward options then? What sort of money do you spend to cover for injury problems? So Sesko's definitely an option. So is Dusan Vlahovic. Definite interest there. Juventus trying to sign Randall Kolo Muani from PSG, where he's been frozen out. If they get him, might that free up Vlahovic to come to Arsenal? Bit of breaking news for you, Mike, that's absolutely relevant to that. Sky Italy, our colleagues over there, are saying that Juventus have an agreement in place now with PSG for the loan signing of Randall Kolo Muani. Does that mean that Vlahovic is somebody they might let go? Does that mean that Arsenal are going to be straight on the phone?
That also has a knock-on effect for another number of other Premier League clubs who have been looking at him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Manchester United and Spurs have both been interested in Vlahovic. And that's the point. Top-class strikers in European football are coveted by a number of clubs. So there's no guarantees Arsenal are going to get him. There's no guarantees that Arsenal are actively looking at him right now. But we know they like Vlahovic. We know they like Sesko. And just that little window with Juventus has opened up in the last few minutes with that news that's broken. Does just give Arsenal a glimmer of light there, I think.
I think for Arsenal fans, though, the frustration will be that Arsenal need a striker now, but they needed a striker in the summer. They probably needed a striker a year ago and the summer before. And clubs have contingencies, they have lists. So Arsenal will have options. And I think the argument is that now is the time to move. And probably Arsenal should have brought a striker in the summer. Pep Guardiola talked about this, that he didn't want to bring players in the summer, and maybe that was a mistake. And maybe it was a mistake for Arsenal not to sign a striker in the summer as well.
OK, and for more on this, David Ornstein is on Back Pages tonight. He's got a real insight into what Arsenal might do in this window. Right, we're going to break away from transfers for just a moment because there are 4 games in the Premier League this evening. That includes the champions Manchester City, looking to make it 4 wins in a row in all competitions. They are just down the road from us here in Brentford. Jamie Weir is at the G-Tech Community Stadium right now. Jamie, hello again. Right, just confirm the news about Kyle Walker.
Yeah, he has not travelled with the squad, Mike. You can see the Manchester City coaches, plural, behind me. When you're the champions, you have 2 coaches, apparently. And the club captain was on neither of them. He has not travelled with the squad. It may be that after 7.5 years at the club, he has played his final game for Manchester City, having won everything, really. A 6-time Premier League champion, multiple FA Cup winner, multiple League Cup winner, and, of course, a Champions League winner a couple of seasons ago as well. Some reports over the weekend that he perhaps has already had a farewell party. He wasn't part of the squad that beat Salford 8-0 on Saturday either, and he has not travelled with the squad this evening. So no Kyle Walker. Whether his next move is to Italy, Saudi Arabia, we wait to see, or whether indeed he stays at Manchester City. But I can tell you one thing categorically, he is not here in West London tonight. OK, Jamie, Manchester City have found a bit of form, won 3 in a row in all competitions. Tell us why they shouldn't be complacent about tonight, though. Yeah, because Brentford always seemed to give them a really good game, Mike. It was a couple of seasons ago that Brentford did the double over them. Pep Guardiola is always effusive in his praise of Thomas Frank and what a tough game they get when they face Brentford. Earlier in the season, the Etihad, Johan Wissa gave Brentford the lead inside the opening minute of the game, and City came back to win the game 2-1 with 2 goals from Erling Haaland. But they always seem to get a bit of a game from Brentford. And you're right, look, if we'd been having this conversation a month ago, you would have said this is going to be a really interesting tie because Brentford had the best form in the Premier League at that stage, and Manchester City were really struggling. As things stand, City have turned a bit of a corner. They've won 3 games in a row. I don't think everything's rosy still with Manchester City, and Brentford have hit a little bit of a sticky patch by their high standards, having lost here at the weekend against Plymouth in the FA Cup, and they'd lost their 2 games here in the league before that as well, albeit against the sides currently sitting 2nd and 3rd in the league, against Arsenal and Nottingham Forest. So their home form, the G-Tech isn't quite the fortress it was a month ago, and Manchester City are on the there's green shoots of recovery when Manchester City are concerned. However, I don't think it's going to be one-way traffic tonight, and Pep Guardiola, as I said, he always knows that he gets a tough game from Brentford, and I anticipate that will be exactly the same this evening.
I think you're absolutely right. Jamie Motti Weir, thank you very much. Right, you can watch all the Premier League goals shortly after the final whistle on the Sky Sports app. All you need to do is scan that QR code and you'll see the highlights from tonight's games. Right, so Jamie's told us Kyle Walker hasn't travelled. Rob, you've got a little bit more on it for us.
Yeah, I have. Look, I've been speaking to some people in the last hour about this, and it's really interesting news, actually, because it's been made very clear to me that the relationships between Manchester City and Pep Guardiola on one side and Kyle Walker on the other are still very, very strong. It's still very amicable. There's been no breakdown in relationships at all, even though Kyle Walker's not on the bus there at the Brentford game tonight. But I've been told that Kyle Walker will only leave Manchester City this month if he can secure a deal at an elite European club, which will further his England prospects. Now, he's got 18 months left on his City deal. He's quite happy to stay if it comes to that. But he knows that he turns 35 in May and that Manchester City aren't going to offer him the length of contract that he would like at this stage in his career, or indeed any sort of guarantee over how much game time he's going to get. Is he going to be first choice right back at City going forward from here? He still believes he has 2 or 3 top seasons left in him at elite level. And as a result of that, whilst he has options in Saudi Arabia, I've been told that a number of clubs in Saudi Arabia have been in touch to inquire. He hasn't sort of explored those options yet because he would very much like a move to a top European club. Why? Well, look, he's on 93 England caps. He desperately wants to make the century because only one black player has ever done that before, Ashley Cole. And he would like to become the second player to mark that milestone, absolutely. So a move that would improve his England ambitions is absolutely key here. City, though, don't want him to leave, plain and simple. He's still part of their plans. But they've got such a good relationship. They appreciate that his next contract is an important one, and they fully support whatever decision he makes, albeit he's got 18 months left. Would they let him go on a free or would they demand a fee for him? I think that depends on which club is interested in going for him. And you've got to remember family is an issue and a consideration for Kyle Walker right now as well. So AC Milan would like to sign him. We've been making that clear over the last week or so on Sky Sports News. But because of the rules in Serie A, they can't afford to sign him and Marcus Rashford. It may be one or the other because of non-EU players and a limit on the number that they're allowed. So I think that's why AC Milan aren't pushing things too much at the moment until they decide which is the most likely to happen and which one they can get over the line, which one they want as a priority. Kyle Walker keeping his options open. Manchester City very supportive in whatever he decides by the sounds of things.
OK, I always thought he was going to end his career at Sheffield United. He said he was going to do that.
He still might do that.
Yeah.
If Sheffield United was to get promoted and he doesn't move in this window, then maybe that could be a possibility.
We will keep an eye. Well, City busy in this window. I'm going to throw names at you to see where these deals are. Right, Tim, Omar Marmoush.
Yeah, fresh negotiations actually took place on this one yesterday. It's moving in the right direction. They were quite some way apart in terms of valuation. That is no longer the case. Now, the interesting thing here is that Eintracht Frankfurt have actually got a game tonight, and their coach said yesterday at his press conference that he would play, he would start in that game. So the T news should be out in the next sort of half an hour.
Yeah,
so we'll find
6:30.
out whether or not he's in the team. If he's not in the team, that would suggest that it's moving quickly and that he could be a Manchester City player sooner rather than later.
I will wager a small glass of water. It's not in that squad. Rob, Vita Reis.
You're really putting
that's all I'm prepared to go.
your neck on the line there, aren't you? Vita Reis, yeah. Look, Manchester City have an agreement in principle with Palmeiras, as we understand it. Big fee as well, a fixed fee, not one that's got bonuses or contingencies attached. 35 million euros, that's just under 30 million pounds. They're sorting the final details of the deal as we speak to you right now. But Manchester City wanted at least one centre-back, maybe two. Looks like they're very close to one in Reis.
Abdul Kadir Kusanov.
Yeah, this is the most advanced. This one is very, very close. He's due to arrive in the UK to complete formalities on this deal. £33.5 million. He's still a young player, only 20, but obviously got a lot of potential, and we expect this one to get done. It's getting very, very close.
OK, right, time for a break. When we come back, we've got news of a done deal, and we've got the very latest on Chelsea's search for, you guessed it, a striker. See you in a moment. It's Dundee Celtic at Dens Park this evening. We'll hear what Chris Sutton thinks about that in just a moment. First, though, Dundee at Aston Villa. Rob Dorset.
Donyell Malen, forward player from Borussia Dortmund, £21 million initial fee, could rise as high as £27 and a bit million, depending on how well he does. Another forward player for Aston Villa surprised me a little bit, but he does play on the wing, really, in effect. But you look at the fact that Villa haven't kept a clean sheet, or they kept one clean sheet, I think, since the middle of November. You maybe would have thought they'd want to stiffen the back line, but they have got some injury problems up front as well. So Malen, done deal, one that Unai Emery's been after for a while. They got that over the line in the last hour or so.
Thanks, Rob. Right, in the Scottish Premiership, Celtic will go 18 points clear at the top if they beat Dundee. It's live on Sky Sports. Our reporter Luke Shanley already at Dens Park for us. Hi, Luke. Luke, I looked at the stats. Dundee not got a result, not beaten Celtic in 44 attempts. I suggest you put some of your Scottish pounds on a Celtic win.
If it's legal tender, I certainly will. It was May 2001 the last time Dundee beat Celtic, and that was at Celtic Park. But one omission from the Celtic team that night, well, he's in our team tonight, was Chris Sutton. Chris, why weren't you playing that night?
That is a really good question. I'd had an excellent season and decided to put my feet up. In truth, I can't remember.
Oh, fair enough. You did win the treble, but fair dues. Can you make a case for Dundee tonight, given the injuries they've got, and but saying that, they did get that result against Rangers during the week?
Yeah, I think we certainly can make a case for Dundee under Tony Docherty. Since he's been at the club, they overachieved last season, top 6 finish, and they're pushing for a top 6 finish this season. We saw the game against Rangers where they had a really nice balance to them, defended deep, and then they had that threat on the counter-attack. Simon Murray never stops running, and Adewumi, a player I haven't seen too much of, in on loan, has been outstanding for Tony Docherty this season. They've got him to the end of the season. He's from Burnley, but he looked really sharp, so they will carry a threat to the Celtic backline.
Do you think Brendan Rodgers will mix it up tonight, given they have this game against Dundee, another game against Dundee in the league this month, a couple of Champions League games, a Scottish Cup tie? Is that what he has to be thinking?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, actually. Unlike you, but yeah, I think he'll be looking ahead to the game at the weekend, Kilmarnock, and then the Champions League next week, and maybe mixing and matching. What is important from Celtic's point of view is Nicholas Coon is fit. I suspect he will start this evening, and then Brendan Rodgers has plenty of decisions to make all over the park. That midfield, it's always 3 from 5. So will McCarron come back and play against his old club, who's sensational for Dundee last season? I think he got into double figures in terms of goals. Good signing for Celtic, always sort of sharp when he comes on and makes a difference. Kyogo was brilliant at the weekend, so that centre forward position, one to watch as well. Will he go with Adamida or Kyogo? And then Greg Taylor, I suspect he will come in tonight. A left back, 200 odd games. I'm not quite sure whether it's his 200th or whether he's had his 200th, but he's been a good servant, and there's still sort of a lot of talk about whether Greg will leave in the summer or even maybe in this window, but I think he's been a good servant for Celtic.
We'll wait and see, and we'll get the team news confirmed shortly. It is live on Sky Sports Football at 7:30. Make sure you join Ailey Barber and guests then.
Luke, thank you very much. We absolutely will. Thank you. Right, we're going to talk Chelsea, Bayern Munich. There's a bit of Chuckle Brothers going on. To me, to you. Tim, who's the Bayern Munich player that Chelsea want?
Oh, you were talking about me and Rob there.
Well,
You went to do with the Tour de Club wrap in a few minutes.
Sky in Germany are telling us that Chelsea have contacted Bayern Munich about Matisse Tell, about the possibility of signing him. Now, he's a player that they've had a long-standing interest in. They asked about him in the summer as well, and it's our understanding that if they were to be given any encouragement, that they could make an offer for him. He can play as a number 9, but also either side of the number 9, and given that he plays for Bayern Munich and they've got Harry Kane playing as a number 9, he quite often has to do that. But yeah, very interesting player, and one to keep an eye on from a Chelsea perspective.
And who's the Chelsea player that Bayern want, Rob?
Christopher Nkunku. There he is. And Sky Germany are saying that Nkunku has agreed a deal in principle with Bayern. So it sounds like personal terms would not be an issue between the two clubs. But the two clubs haven't agreed on a fee yet. And of course, one forward going in one direction, another forward going in another, people go, oh, it's a swap deal. Not as I understand it, and certainly not as it's been explained to us at Sky Sports News. Two separate deals involving the same two clubs, but two different players. It may be that when they're talking about one, they're talking about the other, of course. But he's been really, really impressive, you have to say, when it comes to the way he's performed for Chelsea when he's got those opportunities. But opportunities have been limited. Bayern Munich think they can give him the opportunities that he very much wants. So he's quite keen on the move if they can get across the line, by the sounds of things.
OK, I've got another line, quick line from Chelsea, just reaching us. Axel Dizazi, not in the squad for the game against Bournemouth. He's one of those players Chelsea have said they will be willing to let go this month. Right, we're going to talk Manchester United. We're still waiting news on Marcus Rashford, of course, but there's an update on Alejandro Garnacho. Tim, what have you got?
Yeah, United haven't received any formal approaches for Garnacho as yet, but Sky Italy are reporting that Napoli are interested in signing him. This is an interesting one, really, because Ruben Amorim has made it pretty clear that he is in his plans. Yes, he was left out along with Marcus Rashford, but he was in the starting lineup at the weekend, and it's our understanding that he's a player that United don't want to lose in this transfer window. But Napoli showing some interest in him. It remains to be seen whether that develops into anything firmer.
OK, you'd have noticed the theme this evening is strikers. Everybody wants a striker. That includes Tottenham Hotspur. Here's Ange.
Yeah, January is a difficult month to kind of really have any certainty about anything. I said when, there's a lot of things that need to come together, but, I think I said last week that the club's working really hard in that area, and, if there are any developments, we'll let everyone know.
Everybody wants a striker. Not everybody's going to get a striker. Like Mawani, he might let down 2-3 Premier League clubs. How difficult is it to get a player of a top calibre who plays up front in January? Who wants to start?
We have these discussions in every transfer window. I think it's difficult, even in the summer transfer window, because it's such a small pool, isn't it, of talent. When you look at Arsenal, for example, you could probably count on one hand the strikers that will go in there and strengthen their starting 11. And I know Tottenham are looking to get a striker in. We just heard from Ange there. In the summer, they brought Dominic Solanke in. So you think, yeah, they've solved their striker problem, but they're still looking. Richarlison on his way back from injury now, so that will help them out. Manchester United looking. Ironically, Marcus Rashford is an available striker, and at the moment, he still can't find a home. So it's very, very difficult, but clubs have lists. We know that. They have lists. They have players that they would like to bring in. The problem is some of these deals are very, very difficult to do because some of the players are very, very expensive, and it's difficult to prize them away from their clubs, especially in this window.
Money's a big issue here as well. If clubs are going to let a striker go, they know that they're a premium at this time of the year, so they charge more for them. Also, because they're match winners, they tend to be on bigger wages than players in other positions at clubs, so that's an issue for clubs bringing them in. And Tim's absolutely right. The point is, if you've got a top striker that's injured, if you replace him with a top striker and then, a month or two down the line, they're both available and fit, very often they can't play. It's very rare these days that clubs play with two number 9s on the field. So it's a waste of resources in that regard. So it's very, very difficult. And unless you're an elite club, a Manchester City and Arsenal or Liverpool with big bucks who think they can get one for the future as well, it's very difficult to get a striker over the line in January, I think.
Let's stay with the strikers theme because West Ham are at the London Stadium and they play Fulham, of course, tonight. Our reporter Jeremy Langdon is there. Jeremy, lots of striker problems for Graham Potter. What are his options tonight?
Well, his options are to leave Danny Ings on the bench, which is quite surprising. There's no Ings in the starting lineup, despite the fact that Fulkrug obviously is injured and can't play tonight, and Somerville is out as well. So West Ham are making 3 changes from the team which lost at Villa. There's no Fulkrug, no Somerville, no Skulls on the left-hand side of their defence. In come Emerson, Rodriguez and Soler. So West Ham tonight like this: Fabianski, Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos and Kilman. Emerson, Alvarez, Rodriguez comes in, Souček, Soler, Kudus and Paquetá, with Danny Ings surprisingly left on the bench. He's 32, but only one Premier League start and only one goal so far this season. And as for Fulham, a couple of changes from the team which last played in the Premier League. They made 7 changes for the FA Cup game with Watford, but 2 changes from their last Premier League team tonight. Into the team comes Smith Rowe and Pereira, and out go Kearney and Diop from the last Premier League team. So for Fulham tonight, it's Leno, Castagna, Anderson and Bassi, Robinson, Lukic, Pereira, Wilson, Emil Smith Rowe, Iwobi and Raul Jimenez. We start at 7:30.
Jeremy Langdon, live from the London Stadium. Thank you, Jeremy.
Mike, I just want to nip in there, but while we're talking about the team news at the London Stadium, Fulham, of course, are there tonight. Andres Pereira starts for them tonight, and that's really, really interesting. That's Fulham saying business as usual as far as we're concerned, because the Palmeiras president, Lila Pereira, confirmed their interest in him yesterday. They've had 2 bids already knocked back by Fulham. Fulham have stuck him in the starting 11. He's going nowhere unless you stump up the cash. The last deal, the last offer they made, we think was around £20 million. So will they go any higher than that? If not, he's a Fulham player and staying a Fulham player.
OK, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got news of Arsenal, who are lining up a really big deal for the summer. And my highlight of the day, the Premier League wrap coming up with these two. Not to be missed. See you in a moment.
Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Time now for your bite-sized roundup from around the Premier League. And Rob, we start with Arsenal.
Yeah, we do indeed. Short term, Arsenal are working hard to bring in a forward during this window. Long term, they're closing in on a deal to sign Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad.
Aston Villa have finalised a move for Borussia Dortmund's Donyell Malen, and Diego Carlos could leave for Fenerbahce in a deal worth £10 million.
At Bournemouth, a striker remains a priority for them this month after injuries to Enis Unal and Eva Nielsen.
Brentford take on Manchester City in the Premier League tonight. Their priority in the transfer window remains keeping hold of their best players.
At Brighton, Fabio Hertzler has confirmed that Evan Ferguson could leave the club on loan this month in an attempt to regain fitness and form.
Chelsea have contacted Bayern Munich to ask about the availability of Matisse Tell. Bayern are also interested in Christopher Nkunku.
The Crystal Palace manager Olivier Glasner says Chelsea have the option to recall Trevor Chalobah if they want to during this month.
David Moyes is hoping his contacts in the game will help Everton strengthen during this window despite financial constraints. A forward is very much a priority.
Palmeiras president Lila Pereira remains hopeful that they can sign Andreas Pereira from Fulham. We've just broken that news in the last 10 minutes.
Too many Pereiras there, Rob. Ipswich remain hopeful of signing Aston Villa forward Jadon Philogene. The fee is worth over £20 million with performance-related add-ons.
Leicester City are closing in on the signing of Parma right-back Woyo Koulibaly. Koulibaly is understood to be in the UK right now, ready to undergo a medical.
Jurgen Klopp hopes that Mohamed Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk all stay at Liverpool despite their contracts running out at the end of the season.
And he's had backing from Jurgen Klopp today as well. Manchester City have agreed a deal in principle for Palmeiras centre-back Vitor Reis for £29.4 million, €35 million. Meanwhile, Kyle Walker has not travelled with Manchester City for tonight's game at Brentford.
And Napoli are keen on the Manchester United forward Alejandro Garnacho.
Let's move on to Newcastle then, where we can see Eddie Howe. He's confirmed that Harvey Barnes is ruled out for a month with a thigh strain after Sunday's FA Cup victory against Bromley, but will they sign a replacement?
Nottingham Forest will now allow Taiwo Awoniyi to leave the City ground unless they have a striker to replace him, amid interest from West Ham.
Southampton have announced that Henrik Kraft has stepped down from his role as chair, with Dragan Solak replacing him in the role. What impact will that have on their transfer plans?
And Ange Postecoglou says that January is a difficult month for business to happen, but the club is working really hard to bring players in.
West Ham are exploring the loan option of RB Leipzig striker Andre Silva to try to solve their striker crisis. They're also interested in, as we've mentioned, Taiwo Awoniyi at Nottingham Forest.
And the Wolves head coach Vitor Pereira has said the conversation with Matheus Cunha are very comfortable as he considers whether to sign a new long-term contract with the club.
Now, 4 Premier League games this evening. You can watch all the Premier League goals shortly after the final whistle on the Sky Sports app. Just scan the QR code to access the highlights from tonight's games. Now, we're looking at the team news right across Europe tonight. Now, I very confidently said that the Manchester City target, Omar Marmoush, would not start for Eintracht Frankfurt tonight. I was so confident, I bet Tim a small glass of water. I owe Tim a small glass of water. He starts for Eintracht Frankfurt tonight. What on earth does that mean for the deal? Manchester City, I guess, not too happy. Anyway, as mentioned by the two gentlemen in the wrap, Jurgen Klopp hopes that Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mohamed Salah sign new contracts at Liverpool. However, he's been given no indication that they intend to stay at Anfield or that they don't.
From my point of view, I would love all three of them to extend their contracts. But I don't know. They didn't tell me.
One of the three, all three for Red Bull?
Oh, yeah. Virgil, I'm pretty sure he would love to have now 5 more years at Liverpool and then between 41 and 44 for New York Red Bull, because he probably underestimates US football, but open arms, no problem. Mo, yes, would love to. I don't think we have a chance to pay it, to be honest. And then Trent, yeah. And he could finally learn defending. I can't believe that you all discuss this still. It's so poor. It's so poor, really. I mean, I'm really happy that I'm not part of that. Unfortunately, I watched a few of the press conference when he had to talk about it. I think, oh my God, they still don't understand it. And yes, he didn't play well against Manchester United. But if you would make such a fuss of him when he plays well, like we make a fuss of it when he doesn't play well, that would be really a cool planet. Yeah.
Jurgen Klopp there. Now, we've been speaking quite a bit about Evan Ferguson, haven't we, in this window? Well, the Brighton boss, Fabian Herzler, believes it's important that Ferguson gets consistent game time after his injury problems and hasn't ruled out a loan move. We know that West Ham are interested.
This decision is should be chosen what's the best for the player and for the club. And in the end, we had sent Buonanotte, for example, to Leicester, and we know that the Premier League is a very good league to improve because it's tough, it's intense, and especially for young players, it's the perfect environment to adapt. And in the end, they want to play for Brighton, and we want that they play for Brighton. So I think when they improve in the environment or in the league where we are also playing, it's always very helpful. So that's why I'm not thinking about making the other teams better. It's more about what is the best for the player.
Yeah, you don't make those around you better, but does Ferguson need to get some game time?
100% he needs to play games. I feel a little bit sorry for him because he had a bit of a dip in form and then he got injured and he's not really been able to find that rhythm. But if you cast your mind back, when Harry Kane left Tottenham, there was a lot of talk that could he be the one to go in, a big money signing to replace Harry Kane? And I think that was realistic at the time, that he was potentially someone that could go in and fill his boots. So he's a huge talent, still very young, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of Premier League clubs, we know that everybody's looking for strikers, why he's one of the top names on all these lists that we constantly talk about, because he's got so much promise. And you feel that if he went into a club and got into a bit of rhythm and scored a few goals, that he could go on and have a really successful second part of the season. So you can understand why Brighton are quite content with the situation. If he stays, he might get in the team there and do it for them. If he doesn't, he goes somewhere else, his value goes up, and potentially he goes back to Brighton anyway and scores goals next season.
I think it's a really interesting one, Mike. Yes, we're talking a lot about strikers, but I think you have to realise the power that West Ham have in the market right now, because we know that they want a striker. We know that they're going to back their new manager, Graham Potter. Even though they spent over £100 million in the summer, they haven't got a huge amount of money to spend. But he said he wants a striker, Graham Potter. If it isn't Evan Ferguson, could it be Taiwo Awoniyi at Nottingham Forest? Now, Forest are prepared to let him go, I understand, but only if they get another forward in to replace him. He started only 2 Premier League games for Forest this season. He was their number 1, remember. He was their first choice striker before Chris Wood started scoring all of these goals. And again, this domino effect. We know that Forest have a long-term interest in Santiago Jimenez at Feyenoord. They pursued that in the summer, didn't get a deal over the line. If they could get Jimenez at the right price, would they then be prepared to allow Awoniyi to leave to go to West Ham? And does that have an impact on Evan Ferguson? There's a finite pool of strikers, as we've been discussing. A lot of clubs want them. If one topples, the others might follow.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, couple of team news lines before we go, actually. Kyle Walker not in the Manchester City squad for their game at Brentford this evening. City target Omar Marmoush starts for Eintracht Frankfurt. Right, coming up after the break, we've got Eddie Howe, Newcastle, richest club in the world, can't spend a bean. We're going to talk about them, and we've also got more from Arsenal. See you in a moment. Now, Newcastle's head coach, Eddie Howe, has admitted he'd always favour selling players as opposed to taking points deductions. Now, he was responding to a question regarding any future sale of 18-year-old Lewis Miley, as PSR incentivises the sale of academy products as they're deemed pure profit.
The last thing we want to do, or I want to do as the manager of the club, is to sell academy products that have the potential to play for this team for many, many years. Elliot being a case in point, really, that was the last sale we wanted to make. We knew Elliot's qualities. He'd just broken into the team really at the back end of last season and performed really well in a variety of roles for us. But we were faced with literally no other option in that moment. With 48 hours to go, we had to make a decision that we didn't want to make. So I think it will always be our last choice to do that. But when you add everything together and you go, well, it's a points deduction, breaching PSR or making a sale, I think you have to make the sale.
Yeah, PSR does not make life easy, does it, for football clubs? Speaking of PSR, will Leicester be sighing a huge sigh of relief tonight?
Yeah, they will. Look, I think a number of clubs will. Remember, we got the news earlier on today that no club has apparently breached PSR guidelines, or certainly no club is going to be punished by the Premier League for doing so. And the reason Leicester's a bit of a different situation is we don't really know, because the Premier League isn't in a position to charge Leicester with anything while an ongoing legal dispute happens between the club and the organising league. I mean, the headline from the statement that was given by Leicester and the Premier League is this: no complaint has been brought against Leicester City by the Premier League for any breach of the PSR rules for the period ending season 2023-24. Huge boost for Ruud van Nistelrooy and the team, because they're battling relegation. A points deduction would have been potentially, cataclysmic for them, let's be honest. But is it just a stay of execution or an ultimate victory for Leicester? I think it's only when we get the results of that independent arbitration that we know. Remember, Leicester are claiming that the Premier League didn't have jurisdiction over them with their rules when they were in the Championship. They won that initially. The Premier League appealed against it, and we're waiting for the outcome of that appeal via this arbitration. So is it a big victory for Leicester today, or is it just a stay of execution? Because I think only time will tell on that one.
So how does that impact potential signings in this window?
Look, Leicester weren't going to do a lot of business anyway. They're still sailing very close to the wind. And so they haven't got an awful lot of money to spend. It's been suggested to me they may only have 12 or 14 million pounds in total to spend during this window. And if they spend all of that now, they'll have less to spend in the summer. So they're juggling a little bit now, but they would like to get Woyo Koulibaly over the line if they can. A right-back is absolute priority for them, even though they can't spend big bucks. He's in the UK now, is Koulibaly, ready to undergo his medical, I'm told. Most of the deal has been agreed in principle, but the negotiations over the final bits are in an advanced stage. Leicester think they can get that one over the line pretty quickly, and by all accounts, it's a good deal financially. So that one they think they can do without risking any further punishments with PSR, but don't expect them to spend big bucks beyond that in the rest of this window. They'd like to get a winger, they'd like to get a left-sided centre-back. They can probably only do those on loan, or potentially if they get one or two other players out.
OK, so much to round up today. One of the names that has come up today, Cristiano Ronaldo. Rob, what's going on with him?
He's a money-making machine, isn't he, Cristiano Ronaldo? His current deal at Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia, in the Saudi Pro League, we believe is worth £3 million a week. You can live on it. You can live on it.
You'd scrape by.
And he gets tax benefits out there as well. Anyway, that's by the by. The club would very much like to extend that by a further year. And surprise, surprise, Ronaldo's quite open to the idea. So I think that's one that will get done. But we've had confirmation from Kaveh Solikol, our chief reporter today, that negotiations are underway and both sides pretty positive that a deal can be done.
£3 million a week.
Sweet.
That's senior reporter money, that. All right, Tim. Ben Brereton Diaz, what's going on with him?
Yeah, Sheffield United are still working on this deal. Chris Wilder has identified him as one of his top targets in this transfer window. The reason is because he did so well when he was there last season. He's had a frustrating time at Southampton, and it's just a case of trying to get this one over the line. There's a broad agreement, we understand, in place, but they just can't get the final details done. And I know you've got a little bit more information on this as well, Rob.
Yeah, so from my understanding is from Ben Brereton Diaz's point of view, his partner's pregnant, and so a move is difficult for him at the moment. He's either going to stay at Southampton or he's going to go to Sheffield United, where, of course, he was on loan. He knows it. His wife is comfortable there as well. He's not going to look at Blackburn that were interested in him, and I think Sunderland were interested in him as well. Not an option. So even though they'd be doable from Southampton's perspective, not doable from the player. Remember, in all these deals, two clubs have to agree and the player before anything happens. So it's either Sheffield United or stay at Southampton as far as...
I think Chris Wilder will be a little bit frustrated because he'd identified all these targets. They were top of the league at the turn of the year and he was desperate, I think, to just get the extra players in to give them that push. So his recruitment in the summer was fantastic. He'll be hoping that he can get the players that he wants over the line in this window.
What's going on with Diego Carlos?
Well, Villa are prepared to let him go, and we thought that was going to be a move to Fenerbahce. Jose Mourinho, of course, the manager there, and very keen to get a deal for Diego Carlos. And as of yesterday, this time yesterday, Mike, we thought it was all systems go. I think Villa thought it was very close to crossing the line as well. But actually, we've been told today that deal has stalled somewhat. Mourinho's still very keen for it to happen, so it could be resurrected. And we've still got nearly 3 weeks of the window left, haven't we? So I think it's a deal that could be resurrected, but at the moment, talks have broken down. And after Villa completed the signing of Donyell Malen today, I think they'd like to recoup some money if they possibly can. So maybe that will push them back to the negotiating table. But as things stand, a bit of a stalemate between Fenerbahce and Villa over Carlos. Let's see what happens in the coming days.
OK, we've got third versus first in the Premier League tonight. Nottingham Forest against Liverpool. Bit of team news just in. Taiwo Awoniyi, who we've been talking about, on the bench for Forest tonight. We'll see if he moves in this transfer window. Right, I want to go back to Arsenal, Tim. We know that Liverpool thought they got Martin Zubimendi over the line in the summer. They didn't. Have Arsenal got it over the line?
We understand they're closing in on a deal to sign him. It's our understanding the release clause is £51 million, but this is a deal that won't get done until the summer. So Arsenal have been long-time admirers of the player. We know that Liverpool tried to sign him. He's very, very highly rated. What's interesting here is the connection with Real Sociedad. Martin Odegaard, who used to play there, Mikel Merino, who used to play there. So Arsenal's midfield effectively could be the former Real Sociedad midfield. So the players know each other well, and I think it's that fluidity, those connections in midfield that Mikel Arteta is really, really keen on. So, yeah, this is one that we expect to get done, but not until the summer.
What's changed, though? Because he felt he couldn't leave in the summer. Now we understand he can leave next summer. Why?
It was the player's decision, wasn't it? So he had a rethink in the summer and decided against it. Different club. I mentioned the connection. He already knows some of the players at Arsenal, and that might make the transition a little bit easier for him. He might be regretting, actually, that he didn't go to Liverpool in the summer when you look at the season that they're having. But, yeah, in the summer, we expect this one to get done, and that will be a formidable midfield for Arsenal. But will they still be looking for a new striker in the summer, or will it get done in the window?
That's exactly the point. Arsenal fans have been saying over and over again, window after window, we want a striker. It's all very well getting a midfielder in the summer. Are they going to get a striker in this window?
My gut feeling is no. It's just too difficult to do. I mean, look, they're desperately trying, and I think that situation has changed for Arsenal today with the news that has broken while we've been on air on the transfer show this evening that Gabriel Jesus has indeed got an ACL injury. Mike, you and I know that's 6 months minimum, most likely a year, really, until he can play again. So we suspected it was a serious injury. It looked like one the other day. It's only today that Mikel Arteta has had confirmation of that. So he will now be talking to the recruitment guys at Arsenal and saying, right, where do we go from here? I've wanted a striker for a while. Now we really need a striker. He's only got Kai Havertz as a true number 9 left at the club. And yes, Arsenal play in a different way. They can play with a false 9. They get goals from the wing.
They still score lots of goals, but they've been relying on set pieces. And they have lost Saka, who was a huge source of goals for them.
That's absolutely
I think when the goalposts move and the situation changes, you have to react.
It's whether they've got the money to do it, though, because, of course, you know, Arsenal have spent a big chunk of money in recent times as well. You can't just assume it's there. And they have got a kitty, we understand, for a striker. But does it extend to paying the premium you have to pay?
It has to be the right player. This is a long-term project for Arteta. He's not going to damage that by bringing the wrong player in during this window.
There'll be no panic. There'll be no knee-jerk reaction from Arsenal, I'm sure.
But should there be a panic and a knee-jerk reaction? Because they need a striker. We all know...
They should be prepared.
Are they
Surely a
prepared?
panic.
They keep telling us they're prepared and it's a long-term project, still not got anyone in.
We'll
Are
find
they
out in
prepared?
the next few weeks whether they are prepared, because ultimately that will define whether or not this has been a successful window.
Big difference between Manchester City and Arsenal here. Man City have had a terrible month. They needed strengthening. They needed bolstering and some confidence. They've signed 1, potentially 2 or 3 more to come. Arsenal still quite quiet.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Soccer specialist next. Some great Premier League football coming up.